and together they give us the fullness of living stereo.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the YOUniverse.
Good evening, everyone. You are here on WLTK-DB, Let's Talk Radio. And you're here with Rob Thompson and I on the YOUniverse. We're so happy to have you here.
Good evening, Steph. How's your week been?
Oh my gosh, it has been so hectic, but it's been good. It's been good. It's been warm. How about you?
Kind of smoky.
Yes.
I mean, it's been sort of kind of an Armageddon vibe outside. You're going outside, not as bad today, but the day before yesterday it was, and I'm sure for a lot of people on the East Coast here, just end of days orange vibe. Everything's orange.
And I know I have, all my family's on the East Coast where you're at too, and they've been sending me messages, and we've had smoke here for a couple of weeks, but not to the haze level that you guys have. And so I saw an article today, somebody had compared it to the Blade Runner. Did you see the new remake of the Blade Runner? And it's kind of like that, like you said, that Armageddon end of days glow. It's kind of eerie.
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes you think. I can imagine, what it must be like in upstate New York, for example. But
yes.
But clarity. The rest of the week has been going great for me. Everything. Now that we're out of retrograde, Mercury retrograde. Although everything else is going into retrograde. So,
I am the world's worst psychic medium because I don't follow any of that. And so then I got friends like you, or I got my other friends, and I'm like, everything's going crazy. And they're like, oh, it's retrograde. I'm like, oh, I should pay attention to that. But I don't. I'm horrible.
Well, I'm a student of Heather. So I just pick up what I can here and there. So
I love it.
I don't need an expert.
Tell everybody about our amazing guest today. I'm so excited to have him here.
So this week's guest is just one of the purest, most divine souls that I've met in the 27 years I've lived in the United States. And just authentic, gentle, bright light, his spirit, his character, persona, and his kindness, his generosity. He's an extraordinary man, and that, don't take my word for it, he's also the author of 3 incredible books, which I'll let him tell you a little bit more about.
Love it.
That simply are life-changing. They quite literally will change your life, one after the other. And this trilogy, you have to dig out to get it. Blake Sinclair, and thank you so much for being on the show this week. I love you, man. So let's bring him out. Pull that curtain.
Hello.
There you are.
Hello.
Thank you for the wonderful intro. It's good to see you again, and nice to meet you, Steph.
Yes, it's very nice to meet you here. I'm really excited, that Rob had brought you in, and I'm learning more, about your books. And I just, the little bit of research and connection I've had time to make with you, it really seems like you just have this dedication of serving spirit and humanity.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, we actually met through the Ghost Finders. I think it was season 6 or 7. So about 5 years ago, and I was just blown away by his teachings, but really I found so many levels of comparison of my own journey and my own spiritual journey, of the pain that he embraced that pain and turned it into positive energy and energized it into the words in his first book and second and third, but I'll let you tell him more about that. And so he was really always going to be like one of our first guests.
No, I
on the
love that.
show,
And
in my mind, so
I'm really interested, Blake, to learn how you were able to change that perspective into the motivation and that connection with spirit.
Yeah, it's really difficult because I was born in a very toxic and dysfunctional environment, like many people, and surrounded by parents who were very toxic, very abusive, and
Okay.
being in a culture that even I was discriminated by my own people.
Yeah.
Just because I was born here, you're deemed like different, inferior.
Wow.
They call you a banana, like you're yellow outside, but you're white inside.
Sure.
So I was like too Asian for my Caucasian friends and too, I just didn't fit in.
Right.
So wherever I went, it was difficult. But I had a lot of suffering as a child, seeing my parents fight and not getting the support around me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was difficult to find meaning in life. And at one point, I just wanted to give up because I felt like I didn't fit in on this planet. So I
Right.
began this whole journey of finding purpose and meaning. And to make a long story short, I got some help in the last minute through my mom and my sister. And they felt that the emotional pain that I was suffering, and they reached out to me. And that pushed me to give hope. So I took it on upon myself to search throughout my life to end suffering for myself.
Wow.
I wanted to find the purpose in life, the meaning in life, and how I can end the suffering of myself, and later on to others, my friends, family, and the whole humanity. So as I went through this process, I kind of got into a spiritual journey. And through a journey, that was the real thing that helped me. Because in the beginning, I thought by getting material things, by getting famous or rich, I'll be loved more, I'll be happy. I tried to pursue the American dream. I got all that stuff, but I was not happy.
Right.
So I went on a spiritual journey, and I found something that was deeper, something was more eternal, something more lasting. I started working on the spiritual growth and wisdom, and I was a seeker in the beginning. So as I acquired more spiritual knowledge and started living a spiritual life, I began to evolve my consciousness and vibrational energy. And I was writing at that time, it was just a regular book. We were supposed to write a book like a kind of a comedy Joy Luck Club version book. But the book began to change. As I became spiritual, I began to all of a sudden get downloads. I was kind of channeling information. I didn't know where it came from. I was getting like teachings and principles of love, of gratitude. And as I wrote it down, I would follow the principles, and my life began to evolve further. So that really gave birth to my first book, Dare to Imagine. This book right here. Yeah.
I love it.
And I was given like 18 principles of transformation, helping me to evolve into higher consciousness and to finding true happiness and true peace and true success.
That's awesome.
There's nothing wrong with money. We all need money to survive, but person life is just focused on that. But I learned to have meaning in terms of finding happiness for myself and then sharing that happiness and love to others. So that gave birth to my first book. And I thought I was done.
Yeah.
And then later on, like a year or two later, I start getting downloads again. And I have to write. If I don't write, I keep on getting it. I'll get it in my
Right. I get that.
It drives you crazy. So you have to put it on paper.
Yes.
And when you do that, the spirit, the Ascended Masters, they kind of calm down and say, okay, he's doing it. So we'll kind of give it to him nice and slow. And that one gave birth to the book Beyond Imagination. So that was the beginning of my mystical journey. So I found happiness, but I wanted to get to the next level, higher consciousness. So that led me to my journey to Mount Shasta. And eventually I met Peter Mount Shasta. He's the apprentice to Saint Germain. He's a kind of spiritual master teacher. And he wrote many, many books about the Ascended Masters and guiding him throughout his life to great mastery. So through that meeting with him, that led me to the mountain of Mount Shasta. When I met with Peter, we had breakfast, and then I went to his place, and he had all these pictures of different masters. And while we were talking, all of a sudden he had a vision, or a message rather. He told me that the Maha Chohan was waiting for me. And I said, who? Then he told me again, and again, another message says, the Maha Chohan is waiting for you at Mount Shasta. So I said, where? He says, go to Mount Shasta, go there. I said, I have no idea where to go.
Right.
So I drive there. It was a dark day. It was like snow in the mountain. I said, oh my God, there's nobody here. I'm going to this mountain all alone for the first time. And so, but I went anyway, because Peter is a great master. And if he says do something, you have to listen to him. So I went there. It's very dark. And there's a couple of people there. And I said, what am I doing here? Where do I go?
Right.
Just follow your I am presence, that God presence within you, that kind of intuition.
Absolutely.
And, eventually, I came to know that as the divine compass. And so I followed the I am presence. It guided me to where to go. I began to meditate. And that day, it was so dark and so scary. I would see footprints of like I don't know what's a bear, but it's a huge footprint. I said, you know what? Am I coming here to get eaten by a bear or a Bigfoot or something?
Right, right.
They won't bring me here. So I trusted the process, trusted the masters to protect me. So I went there, meditated, and all of a sudden I had a high frequency from my right ear. And that's when the Ascended Masters appeared to me, Saint Germain and Kuan Yin and Maha Chohan. They appeared to me and others. And they began to do an attunement on me to raise my consciousness, to accelerate my awakening. And that gave birth to the book, Beyond Imagination, about the mystical journey. And I write about my journey of how I reached that certain state of consciousness. And I was always on the search for God, like all these Indian saints and sages,
Right.
like Yogananda. And they always talk about the communion with God and Creator Source. So I was on that journey. And eventually, the great wisdom, the Ascended Masters guided me in the meditation system to help me reach that state of consciousness.
I'm kind of curious, and I don't mean to cut you off, but this thought keeps coming up, and I'm thinking the viewers might have that same thought. Is your ability to trust, right, in this process is huge. A lot of us struggle with the trust. And I know you talked a little bit about your upbringing and your family situation being difficult, but did you already come from a background of religion where you were able to kind of bring in that spirituality that left you open-minded? Because you seem so open-minded, with the process, where I look at my own journey where I was so doubtful with so many things. And I'm just curious how you came from that place of open perception.
Well, I was raised as a Christian, a Lutheran when I was young, but somehow the way it was taught to me, it just didn't seem right.
Okay.
There was a lot of fear,
Right.
and judgment, and it didn't feel right. I always believed there was a supreme being, a creator there, but I didn't believe everything that was told to me. So I had to search further. I felt like the truth was out there. I was not getting the complete truth. And so only through the meditation, through my spiritual studies, that I really come to understand the divine presence and the relationship between the divine and us, and how we're all connected.
Right.
And how we are a beautiful expression of that God consciousness.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really what drew me also towards you. How you've grown, how from that pain. There we go. There's the rest of you. It's like the floating head, it was like a Kubrick thing going on, and really sort of turned that whole thing around. There's so many people that I think really use that as a crutch and are permanently in victim mode, because of whatever happened to them as a kid. And we've all had some stuff. And I think that you have also two choices of directions to take with that. And with yours, you've obviously chosen to help others going through a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you is one of the theories that a good friend of mine, Teal Swan, was talking about, and that is the whole thing about how you develop that ability in a toxic situation, like you were saying, in your childhood, that she was saying very much that you develop ability because you are constantly walking on rice paper. So you always have to, as a self-survival method, develop that ability to sense, is it a good time to say anything or to walk into the room or not? And way ahead of most other people, because you absolutely have to, for your own, what you feel is your own preservation.
That's right. You know, it's funny you say that, because when I was young, my mom was so volatile, and when I walked around, she could hear me walking. And she worked the night shift, and so she heard me walking down the hall. She would scream at me, yell real loud. So even if I step on the ground, the flooring, if it creaked a little bit, she could hear it. So when I was young, I had to be so quiet. I was like a little ninja when I was young, because I was so sensitive to my mom. I didn't want to wake her up and subject myself to her wrath. But I was always very sensitive to people, especially to my parents, and being very careful to do the right things. So I think it kind of pushes me in a certain direction. But, you know, the thing is, I think we're put into our family situations. We choose as souls that when we come to the planet to be in a certain family. There's a reason, because they create a circumstance, this turmoil within us to push us, and it's up to our choice. So we can either, you know, run away from it, or we can deal with it. So when situations like that come, it's like a teacher. The circumstance, our parents or the surrounding becomes our teacher. It teaches us to grow, and if we embrace it, we grow from it, and we become stronger. I've seen so many people affected by poor dynamics in the family or bad teachers, and I felt really bad for them. So I told myself, I'm going to work really hard to make a difference, because I want to prove to the world that as toxic as my family was, as bad as I was as a child, I had learning disability, I had processing problems, I wasn't too good in school. And when you're like that, people treat you differently. So I decided, if I'm going to work really hard and prove it to the world that if I can do it, anybody can do it, and then show them the steps. And I think that was part of the impetus for me to work so hard, to try my best for others as well, because I didn't want to be stuck the way I was. And I felt like there's got to be a better way of living, and there's got to be happiness out there. And I found it through all the years of hard work, and I put all that together so that people can see it, so they didn't have to go through the same thing I went through.
And in that perspective, you know, people who are going through that, who are dealing with, because even as adults, there are some volatile relationships that we deal with. What do you feel are the most important things that we can do to not only master our spiritual connection, but to help us through those relationships, so that we're learning from them, but we're not carrying the trauma with us?
Great question.
Yeah, you have to. It's a lot of hard work. You know, it's not like you just say something, it's so easy, but there's a lot of ways to deal with it. And one thing is understanding that this toxic person doesn't necessarily mean to send their anger towards you.
Right.
They have their own problem. They were taught certain ways of teaching, and so they're just doing whatever they were taught. And so their toxic behavior is because they don't know any better. And so just realize that, and that they're having a problem. Don't take it personally. Right. And then develop the self. You know, you have to cultivate the self. You know, you do meditation and nurturing yourself, and surround yourself with people who are more positive to kind of balance that. So, but these things happen because you're in the family dynamic for so many years.
Right.
It gets into your psyche, especially when you're a young child. And so it holds on to your subconscious mind. And so you can't just let go of this. I forgive you. That's great. But you have to do some deep inner work.
Yes.
You've got to do like a hypnosis to get into the subconscious realm, to change the program, because you as a child perceive your parent as a bad person, and you blame them. I blame my parents for everything before. I didn't take any responsibility. Your fault. I'm dumb because of you. You said I'm stupid, and then that you created me. But there's only a certain point you have to grow up.
Yeah.
And take responsibility. So there's all these the hypnosis and all these therapies to work on to free yourself from these subconscious strongholds.
You talk about hypnosis,
Yes.
and that's, you know, something I think a lot of people have, you know, considered. And I know people who absolutely swear by it and have had an incredible transformation, a spiritual transformation, and of character. You know, they're more them, you know, afterwards than they were before, even after one session in some cases. I know 3 or 4 people like that. Now, what's your own experience? If you can actually move a little bit closer to the microphone too, or maybe move the mic towards you, just because your voice is so great, we will want to hear what you have to say.
Speak louder, right?
There we go. There. But what was your experience? I've never done that, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, when I went on my journey to end my suffering, I sought out every possible way of helping myself, from a medical doctor to hypnotherapist, energy medicine people. So I worked with a really good hypnotherapist, and she's pretty famous in the field. And for me, I had no idea what to expect. Actually, before I did that, I went to just a regular hypnotherapist who did regression therapy, and that was extraordinary. I was just curious. And we did a regression session one time, and within a short time, I went back in time into Egypt, and I could see so clearly my past life. It was real clear. And the man who did it, he didn't give suggestions. He just told me to open my eyes, and I saw myself. I was living in Egypt, and I knew what I was doing. And I lived a certain life as like a prince. And then I gave that up, and I went to become a healer at these, what they call a sleeping temple. I didn't know anything about that. And then I guess I died of old age. And anyway, this is a paranormal show, so there was some kind of extraterrestrial connection there. They were helping me with soul transformation and evolving my soul to the different time period, or moving on to the next dimension. So that got me excited. So then I went to a regular hypnotherapist, and she worked with me. And the way it works is that they kind of calm your mind down through words, and then the way they say it, they bring your awareness within, right? So that the mind, the logical, critical part of you shuts up. That's a part of our problem. Is your mind talks too much.
Yes.
Settle down, and when it settles down, then your subconscious opens. At that point, they can put some positive suggestions. I feel good. I have good self-esteem. I'm positive, and so that part of you, it helps you to start rebuilding that subconsciousness, because you're told, I'm stupid, you're dumb, all these things. It stays in there. It won't go away on its own. So through the process of hypnosis, you reprogram. Sometimes it can happen one day, you change. Other times, it just takes maybe a couple of weeks. But the best thing is get a hypnotherapist, create an audio, and listen to that every day, twice a day. Oh. Through time, that program that was created in your first 7 years of life will change. Yeah. And then, because otherwise you're not your real self. This subconsciousness is controlling you the whole life. It doesn't matter how much spiritual knowledge you have, or what you do, how much therapy you have, or medicine you take. That subconscious programming is controlling everything. It's telling you you're dumb, you're a loser. So whatever you do, it's going to go to the subconscious mind. Right. You have to reprogram it. So that's one method, is the hypnosis. But there's other methods of transformation as well. But it's a very powerful method, and I highly recommend it, finding a very good hypnotherapist. It's different than stage hypnosis. It's a clinical thing. You work with a therapist that guides you through the process. But in my opinion, we all need that, because no one escapes the subconsciousness.
No, we don't. We don't.
It's programmed by people who don't know any better, and it just stays with us throughout our life until we set it free. So, and that's one thing that's interesting, because so many spiritual masters and gurus, they're very academic. They're very wise. They're good on stage. But then you see their life, how they treat people. And they don't even love themselves. But when they talk, they can talk wonderful things, and they look great on TV. But, if they did the inner work to clear all that, they'll be a better person. So true mastery becomes when you integrate that, when you release all those programs and put programs you want, the positive words you want to change, so you co-create your reality rather than someone else did it for you. And part of this is kind of like energy for the past life. It also goes into your subconsciousness.
Well, and I like, with that too, you're also taking accountability, right? Because I know, there were aspects in my childhood that could have been different. And I came from a family who was loud. They yelled.
Yeah.
And, I saw myself repeating that with my children. And there's still times it slips out, and I'm not proud of myself when that happens, when I get loud and I just yell. But it took me, we go through that vulnerability to say, okay, now I'm an adult. I didn't like this when I was a child. I have the power to change it. And you have to have those honest conversations though, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. We think that we're here to be these perfect examples, but we're here to learn. And you have to be vulnerable, and you have to say, you know what? I can be a better person. Am I going to be a better person overnight? No. But take that accountability and realize we have the power to adjust that.
Yeah, the awareness. Sometimes things have to happen so bad that wakes you up and say, you know what, I got to change.
Yeah.
Before your marriage falls apart or your kids are getting so stressed out. I did a lot of things early on because I wanted my children in the future to not inherit all the things that my parents gave me.
Yeah.
So I worked hard at cleaning myself.
Right.
So, but part of the problem is that most people don't know what tools to use to get better.
Yes.
And so that was the purpose of my books, to share all the tools you can use so that you can use that for transformation. And they all work to different degrees.
Yeah, I think we can all take a lesson from that. That's very well, everything you say is thought provoking, but what you said about taking self accountability, it's very easy for us to dump the blame on our parents. We can carry on doing that throughout our life and blame everything else, blame everything that goes wrong on everyone else but ourselves. And I've really only in these last few years really just come to terms with what that really means, because if you talked about making sure that you do the work yourself so that you are the genuine article that you can become. You can inspire people and you can heal people, because otherwise, and this is my scenario, if you will, it must be like trying to build real estate and sell it, without when your own home is a complete disaster, and so I think self-healing, and that's something that I've been personally has been a journey for me, always, but more so since I came to terms with that really over the last sort of 5 years or so. I wanted to ask you before I forget, because the last time we talked, I wanted to ask you about this. What are your thoughts about the experience of the Genesis molecule, the DMT?
Are you talking about the one in the third eye and
that supposedly brings you on this journey, opens up the pineal gland, and you see people who've taken it have seen extraterrestrials. They feel like like a big veil has been pulled away, and that they can actually see what's going on behind the scenes, on a multi-dimensional level.
I think that's great. I mean, I think there's different ways to support your pineal gland and to have more DMT. But the thing is, some people, they get into that, the joy, the excitement of doing that, and you forget. You can kind of get lost in track of the spiritual path, focusing too much on that. It's wonderful. I mean, people want to learn how to do levitation. They want to enhance psychic skills, which is all good. But I think, to me, it's getting down to the basic. You focus on those foundational things. You focus on the gratitude, because what happens with that, you get lost in that realm. You can keep on enhancing it and get further and further into it, and then you forget there's a creator. You forget about love for yourself, love for others. Those basic things. I mean, you can even talk about people who attain ascension, who attain a rainbow body, but then are they living in the process? Are they really having mastered the art of living? Because a lot of these people who master it, they eventually come back and they're reincarnated because they miss out on a lesson of life. So, I mean, I think it's wonderful to do those kind of things. There are a lot of things you can do to enhance the decalcification of the pineal gland to improve it. So, but I would say you do some of those things, but also continue the kind of sadhana, the spiritual path, of devotion, of prayers, of service. Those kind of things are the foundational things of spirituality. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, you can get kind of lost. People want all these powers to heal, which is not a bad thing. But sometimes people's ego gets in there and say, okay, I'm a great healer
Absolutely.
now. I see all these visions. You get what you're supposed to get. And, there are things you can do to support it. It's just like sun gazing in the morning when the first sun comes out in the first thing in the morning and looking at it for about 20 seconds or so. That activates your pineal gland, support it, helps you produce the melatonin for sleeping, and it helps you to improve your sensory perception. And eating like certain things like wild blueberries, it supports it too. Like David Wilcox, he swears by stingray oil to support it. So there's a lot of things you can do. I remember going to Mount Shasta, and I was hanging around with a bunch of guys who call themselves the Rainbow Warriors. And my friend is he has the biggest Vogel crystal wand in the world. It's huge. It's like probably, I don't know, maybe 5 pounds. It's a big wand about that big. It looked like a Thor figure. And he was blasting the guy's pineal gland, and it was calcified. And then he opened it, and all of a sudden, that guy saw visions. He could see, different reality. He could see what do you call it, the spirits, things that we don't normally see. Opening the third eye. There's mantras you can say. There's a lot of things you can do, or through a guru to open it up. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think, outside of these other enhancements that we talked about, do you think a lot of these things can also be accomplished with meditation?
Meditation, yeah, definitely. Because if you work on meditation, you're working on one of the chakras. And when you do that, you activate it. It does support it. But myself, I believe that a multi-approach is the best way, through nutrition, through meditation. Definitely meditation is a kind of a key component to higher consciousness. And as you do more, your psychic ability enhances and your healing ability enhances. And as you remove all those webs of subconscious programmings, your power becomes stronger too. But also just staying away from the fluoride, your toothpaste.
Fluoride toothpaste that calcifies the third eye, the pineal gland, right?
Right. Yes.
But so, and my dentist, if I told him that, he'd be like, "Oh, right." But it's true, and it's interesting because when you're talking about we were talking while we were on the subject of talking about that there really aren't any shortcuts, but there are enhancements. I think that one of the things that first springs to mind for me, in terms of a creative example of that, are, for example, the Beatles' work, and how, from 69 to 70, just in the space of a year or two, 70, 71, they went actually on the verge of their split up. But Sgt. Pepper's, when that whole psychedelic thing happened, they'd been experimenting with transcendental meditation and LSD, and as to enhance that opening, that spirit. And then if you look at the way that their music changed so much, they weren't like a boy band anymore. They were this
It's so funny you bring up the Beatles, because all day, and I'm not a huge Beatles fan, but all day they were stuck in my head, and I'm walking around singing Blackbird, and I'm like, why are the Beatles stuck in my head today?
Love that song.
So thank you for that. I do too, but thank you for that validation of why the Beatles are stuck in my head all day long.
You're welcome, Steph.
So you bring up a good point, and I know some gurus, they allow their disciples to try these things because people don't know there's another reality. It's like so incredible, so vivid, and all that. Why not do ayahuasca then? I mean, the thing is, if you're not mentally ready, you do these things. Let's say you've got a lot of dark energy in with you, and a lot of things you haven't worked on, you haven't resolved in the childhood, and all of a sudden you open your perception, your third eye, you can get a mental breakdown from these things, depending on how mature you are.
You know,
So,
that's so true. I had an experience where I was giving a reading to somebody. And, you know, when I'm giving readings, I tend to kind of look off and gaze off. And I had an experience where over their right shoulder, I literally began to see a tear in this reality. And then I was seeing things that I'm skeptical, even as a psychic medium, I'm skeptical. And I was kind of freaking out because I could see with my left eye everything was normal, but with my right eye there was this ripple, this tear in this reality, and it stuck with me for a while. It's something now that I can control, but you're right. You know, it's hard enough to rationalize, at least for me. I connect with spirit the way I do. I connect and communicate with people that have transitioned. But then to add, you know, this is already kind of taboo, but then to add all that other stuff that I was experiencing was very overwhelming.
yeah, that's right. That's right. But people are curious though, but I think if you have that maturity, the emotional and the mental maturity, having something like ayahuasca with a very good shaman
Right.
can be very enlightening. You can see great things and visions, and you can confront your own inner demon and resolve it. So, but you have to be careful too. One of my neighbors is a psychiatrist, and he did ayahuasca with a famous shaman. First time he said it was a wonderful, blissful experience. The second time he had like a breakdown.
Yeah.
So he hasn't been the same since he did it.
Wow.
So I just caution people. I know more people that had great experience, but even from a famous person, it depends on your inner dynamic, what's going on. So when you want these things, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just the timing of it. So if you, like the guy who did it in Mount Shasta, they just did it quickly. They took the Vogel crystal wand that blasted that energy of the pineal gland, opened it right away. So that's a kind of quick and dirty way, but I don't recommend that way. Do the inner work, and when you're ready, a lot of times these things will naturally happen, or you'll meet the people who guide you to allow you to have more support you with it. So no rush, because you can do it anytime. But I would support it from a nutrient standpoint, meditation, and then if you want further, you can use crystals also.
Yeah.
You can put crystals on it, and it enhances it.
And what crystals are the best, do you think?
Well, like like amethyst is usually for like the third eye.
Okay.
But if you ever get your hand on a genuine Vogel crystal wand,
Yes,
it's a pretty powerful thing. They use that for healing. My friend in Canada, Joe Eagle, he uses it for weather shamanism, and he does entity extractions with the Vogel crystal wand.
Yes.
Developed by Dr. Marcel Vogel. He was kind of a scientist.
Yeah.
And became like a kind of a mystic and healer later on in his life. Yeah, amazing guy. But he created this tool that used for healing and transformation.
Well, the time really has flown by, Rob. We only got about 5 more minutes with our guest.
I can't believe it. I told you beforehand it was going to just like this. It's like outer dimensional. The first time I met you, you were talking about Mount Shasta, but we were on our way. I think we were in San Francisco. We met and we spent some days and hung out. And then I went for the first time to Mount Shasta, and many people consider that, do they not, a sort of like a root chakra of the planet Earth.
Right.
I love it.
A sacred place. There was a supermoon, and
beautiful.
Just all energies converging. We went as far to the top as you can, because beyond a certain point you can't go higher. Tribal drum music, drum circles, dozens and dozens of people. The vibe was so stirring. My kids were little. They just couldn't.
Yeah,
they just could not grasp it. They were like, "Am I in an Indiana Jones movie or something?"
Right.
It's an incredible place, and the headwaters. I mean, don't even get me started on the headwaters. This is the most delicious and invigorating water that I've ever touched or drank. It's just an extraordinary place, Mount Shasta. So
definitely.
And I do see we have a quick question. If I could pop it in, that someone just popped up before you leave, Mr. Sinclair. They have a question, and they said, when you're starting to awaken more, does your normal work, and I'm assuming they're talking about the normal self work you've been doing, start to break away to get you ready for the new things that are to come?
I think, it opens up more doors, and you start to meet different people, so that you start doing different things. But as far as regular daily work, or what kind of work you talking about? Just
I think they're talking like personal work, and so as you start, and maybe they're referencing like leveling up as new things and challenges come in with that self-vulnerability.
Yeah, you start to do more inner work, and you start to be more aware of like meditation, more awareness of the breathing when you work and when you're living, more aware of just the surrounding and people dynamics.
Right.
Yeah, just more self-awareness. And you're more aware of your thought processes versus being automatic. You kind of observe your thoughts and emotions, and you can kind of see that, and then you see the patterns, and then you can kind of make changes to head you in the right direction. So definitely, it opens up your consciousness by doing the meditation as a foundation for spiritual awakening. That's a must. You have to do that.
Yes, I like that.
Where can people find your books? I know the answer to that, but because Amazon is where I go. But please tell us how they can find you on the web and on social media.
Amazon, this is the first one. The second one, I'll show you quickly the third one too. This one is a kind of an important one for the modern world because it contains so much information about health and wellness, longevity, and about ascension. So they all combine together to give you a broad and holistic perspective of healing and spirituality, the whole gamut, the whole path, and it'll help you get there. And if not, you need more stuff, I'm here. But Amazon, select stores in the Bay Area, San Francisco, there's some in Dublin and Pleasanton, Mount Shasta. But if you have questions, you can send me a message and I'll tell you where. But Amazon is usually the easiest place to find my books.
Perfect.
BlakeSinclair.org.
Yes. Look him up, everybody.
Just kind of warming up and getting started.
I know.
Go on for hours more.
We'll have to have you back on. We'll have to have you back on the show and talk about some of this stuff. It's been so informative. I've really just enjoyed your energy and sitting and talking to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I knew you would. I knew you would. And I hope everyone has it at home because there's so much to learn from this man and from his teachings. And yes. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and blessings to you. Always. It's been far too long since we saw each other. It's what, 2-3 years.
And we all struggle. We all struggle with that self-work. We all struggle with the vulnerabilities. But there's people out there like Blake who are genuinely here to support you, to support your growth, and they want that best for you. So if you're in that place, please look him up. Do not be shy. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and get the support. We'll see you all back in just a minute.
Right, take
Bye,
care.
Blake.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Focus your hocus and your pocus on our range of artisan handcrafted natural soaps. We can't give away the potion of youth, but a gift from Crescent Moon Soaps will please one and all. That's the truth. CrescentMoonSoaps.com.
Visit Crescent Moon Soaps.
If you're a fan of the paranormal world, then you'll love WLTK-DB Talk Radio. Talk shows bringing you the latest on everything paranormal, cryptozoological, metaphysical, true crime, psychic readings, and more. The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com. Just Sage It, a selection of intuitively handcrafted crystal jewelry, Crystal Creations sacred sage sprays, moon ritual mists, chakra and angel sprays, and more to balance your energies and manifest your best life. Energize your body, mind, and spirit. When life brings you down, just sage it at shopjustsageit.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio, where you're tuning in to the universe with my fantastic, wonderful, amazing host, Rob Thompson, and myself. If you're just tuning in, you missed, I think it was an awesome conversation with Blake Sinclair. So much information, Rob.
It's kind of like, so he's one of those people that is almost impossible not to.
Yes,
You know,
his energy is so contagious.
it really is. I when I tried to interview him the first time, I don't know if he's still backstage, but it was absolutely impossible because the camera was like rolling for like a 10-minute segment on the Ghost Fighters, and
Wow.
it was rolling for like an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And it felt like 10 minutes.
It does. It went so fast.
And you come away and you feel, wow, just this wonderful sense of hope and positive energy.
Absolutely. And I think, we need more positive energy. You and I have talked both personally and here about the need to end that stigma, the stigma of self-help, that stigma of we have to be perfect. And that there's people like that really, truly want to help you.
I think, and that's so true. And I think once you show your vulnerability, which is one thing that most of us have a hard time with.
I struggle.
And because then you lay yourself open. But I think once you do that, you really, it's just like you're putting down your weapons and you're saying, let's get to know each other, and to on anyone incoming energy at all. I certainly through I had a reading the other day, and lovely lady, and she was telling me that she felt she used the analogy logs had been lifted off her shoulders because she'd gone for the first time in 30 something years down to that vulnerable place and brought all that pain up, like popping
it's true. And I know I've looked at, myself, and I shove all my vulnerability aside. I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be, whatever. And I would look at people who had these large emotional responses as being weak, because that was my perception at the time. And as I kind of came through life, and Spirit said to me, okay, you think this person is weak because of their big emotional response, but you won't allow yourself to have that response because you're vulnerable. So really, who is stronger? And that conversation with Spirit really changed my perspective and made me look at that so different, because there's so much more strength in being connected to yourself and connected to everything around you.
Yeah. You lay yourself open, and the veneer's gone. And and I think if we all did that, more of us did that, and removed ego from the equation, that there'd be so much more love,
absolutely,
in this world, and it wouldn't be the toxic place that it is, just dystopian madness. And with that said, I just want to thank everybody for we've only been doing this show for our third week on the air. It's just the response has been absolutely amazing.
It has. Very well received.
Really blown away by you guys. You're all fantastic.
So on the topic of ego, I realize I have to tell you this. You're going to laugh at me, but so you guys were all watching the commercial break, and Todd ran that one of all of the people talking from the station. I'm wearing the same outfit as the commercial. So this outfit is now banned, guys, because talk about ego. I own more clothes than this. So I was like, what? I'm even the same sweater.
I'll tell you what though, but you're not alone, because someone said to me on set a couple weeks ago when we were filming in Indiana for for the Ghost Finders, they were like, "Do you own anything of color?
Right.
Is it all
No.
black?" You know, and I
Yeah.
was just like, "Gosh!" And at that point, I just decided to put on a blue Henley, sort of
There you
a
go.
blue gray Henley, and I was just like, "Okay, I've broken that mold."
Yeah. Yeah. Courtney, a mom outfit, right? I even changed. Like, if you guys watched my show this morning, my outfit was more fun. It was a foreigner shirt. I was jiving, but now this is my serious clothes.
Well, that's fun. That's fun. It's a kind of like, but it's a kind of, you know, Scottish Irish bag lady sort of
Kind
feathered
of.
head fun.
Yeah. I
You
even have the
know,
cats.
feck.
Speaking of, it's been a while. You know, we've had on all these wonderful guests, and we haven't heard any Rob-isms lately. I need a new English word. Like, you know, we talked about the fanny pack thing, and you know, I need a new English word that just really doesn't make sense over
God,
here.
you know what? I'm your person, because
You
half
are.
of the stuff
You're my
I
go-to
say
guy.
doesn't make any sense. But my spiritual guide Josie is always telling me that. So, but I've always been asked, what the heck? What's bugger?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's a good
bugger.
one.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah.
And you know why? Like, when did you hear that first? Well, it was 4 Weddings and a Funeral with Hugh Grant. Real bugger. You know, and I don't know. It's just sort of, it does have a meaning. I'm not going to explain it on here.
Right. I get it.
But
I figured it had a meaning when you told me to bugger off the one day. I kind of inferred what that meant. And he wasn't being mean. I was just telling him he can't keep secrets, and that's why we didn't tell him about the tea.
when you try and keep something from a medium, you know, that's hysterical, especially a good one like you, Steph.
Oh,
You know,
no.
but yeah, I'll come up with a different. Okay, here's a better one.
Okay.
Right. Bollocks.
Oh, that's a good one.
Bollocks. That's a load of bollocks. Now, if you are talking about bollocks and you're saying, well, that's the dog's bollocks, then that means it's not actually the genitalia of a canine. It is something really hot, awesome, you know.
Wow.
But if you were to say to Prince Charles, you know, if you say, King Charles, is that? I have to say, I see your crown and your scepter, and it really is the dog's bollocks. He would probably respond, "Oh, thank you kindly. This is back into the 1800s," you know, and yeah, but yeah, it's one of those crazy British words. Sex
Are you
Pistols.
allowed to make fun of the king? I don't think you're allowed to make fun of the king.
Well, what's he gonna do? He's got 4,000 miles to come and
I
get
don't know.
me.
I'd be worried. Someone's going to be outside your window tonight yelling, "The British are coming," and you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, I grew up 5 miles from
That's crazy.
Highgrove, where he and Diana lived, where he still lives.
That is crazy.
But yeah. So royalty aside, thank you guys for all your support with this show, and I am so honored to be,
absolutely,
you know, your co-host, Steph. You're amazing.
You're ridiculous. I love you, Rob. Do you know what's going on for the show next week, so we can tell the viewers what's going on? Do we know what's going on?
Let me have a look into my subconscious. It's a pretty good one.
I don't know if I'm gonna show up next week if he's looking to shirt.
What?
I love you, Rob.
Please, will you? Yeah, actually. So next week's show is a good friend of mine, Angie, and Angie is one of the most extraordinary. She's a sensitive. She's a medium. She has an incredible story to tell.
I can't wait.
And she's also has an amazing business called Crescent Moon Soaps, which she's also gonna be seeing her on season 12 of the Ghost Finders, starting in September. But yeah, she'll be my guest. If you're on the road hitchhiking, say sod it, bugger it.
No, that's not for a couple weeks, and then you get Todd. I'm going to the East Coast. Maybe I'll knock on your door. Maybe I'll just do the show from your house.
Well, I mean, I love Todd and all the rest of it, but maybe if he shaved his legs, and put on a bit of rouge.
All right. But on a serious note, we love the viewers. We love each other. We love Todd. We love everybody.
We love you. And you love you. That's what it's about.
It is about that. Absolutely. And remember, send us over. You guys want us to talk about something? You want to start a conversation? We're not afraid to take on any topics. So please drop it in, send an email, and make sure, there's other great shows coming up tonight. And there's other great shows throughout the week. So make sure you guys are checking those out here on the station. You have anything else to add, Rob?
Well, I agree with Courtney Lopez. She's his hair looks like it's growing the wrong way. Anyway.
I thought you were talking about this So You're Practically Royal one. I was ignoring that one.
You're practically right. His hair looks like it's growing the wrong way, LMAO. Don't be mean to her. Okay, I think that was directed at me. Also, real quick, because I know a few people have asked. I'd love to give you a psychic reading, and you can book a psychic reading with me or Steph at our respective URLs. Mine is spiritmedium.com, and Steph
is just find me on Stephanie Lynn on Facebook. Spirit Sensitive.
Yep.
Definitely easier. I don't have a website yet. I'm not that technical. So thank you.
When
That's
she
Cleo.
When she does, it'll be www.scottishbaglady.com.
Yes, scottishbaglady.com. I have royalty in my English line, so you shouldn't mess with me.
I would never dream of it.
I know.
No, because we're going to be at a con together coming up. So.
Oh, goodness.
I want to hear all about your lineage.
Somebody send us bail money. All right. On that note, I will see you next week, my friend. It's always fun being here with you and with the viewers, and I appreciate everything you do behind the scenes.
A pleasure. Likewise. Yes. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend. We're only 5 hours away from TGIF.
Ooh, I'm going fishing, folks. I don't know what you're doing.
4 hours.
4 hours. Yes. All right. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.